Tag Talk, episode 15, the most content-free Nerf content on YouTube. I'm Mark from AllTheDarts. Joining me today will be GingerNinja, Garbutt, Elma, and of course, Tartan Skirmish.
Thank you for that. So yes, indeed, welcome to episode 15 there. For this episode, we're going to be discussing the recent Crisis in Karhazi event. So we got a whole bunch of people on who attended with them. What we typically do when we have a new player on is that we do a new player spot. In the past, it's usually been one player maybe. This time, I've got a whole bunch of brand new guests who've never been on the show. So just working around the screen in front of me there, why don't we all take a couple of minutes to explain how we got into the hobby there. Ginge, you're up first. How did you get started in this phone playing hobby?
To be honest, it probably started around COVID time because there was just nothing to do. So I convinced parents to buy a whole bunch off eBay and I started modding from there. Then Scouts started back up and I went to a few Nerf Wars there and then started hosting my own Nerf Wars with the Scouts and found the Discord, and it's been a glorious year of nerfing ever since. And I've gone to more events than I could ever imagine and met a whole bunch of people that I will sometimes regret having met, but never usually.
Okay then. Next up, Garbutt. I believe I've known you the longest out of this motley crew of
I
individuals
think you
here.
have, yes. I got started technically a couple of years before I met you, when my friends and now teammates, knowing that I hated the character Claptrap from the Borderlands game, bought me for my birthday little Claptrap figurine and a tiny, I think it was a Fire Strike blaster to shoot it with. And I had a blaster. I shot them with it when they came round, and then one of them turned up with a blaster, and we shot at each other, and things escalated. And now we have an ongoing home invasion, where anytime one of us visits the other, we go in shooting, and they have to defend themselves. We started, an arms race started. Blasters got bigger and more powerful. We started going to events, and without quite knowing how it happened, we then became a team. And much to my shock, I at one point got described as the leader of Fire Team Wolfer, and I was like, "How did that happen?" And here I am.
Okay then. Elma, you want to go next, mate?
Yeah, it's quite recent for me. I've probably been into Nerf, I guess, about 18 months. And it just started because I had more time on my hands than usual. And one of my friend's daughters had a great collection of Nerf stuff. And of course, I asked to have a go. And that turned into us having miniature battles with her and all her friends. And from there, I found out about modding, started 3D printing stuff, and it's just got a bit out of control. And now I've got a house full of Nerf stuff.
And finally, our host, or rather our event organizer for this evening there, Mark. How did you become the crack dealer for everybody here?
Oh God! So yeah, we call it the coffee shop pipe dream. This whole all the darts thing. So within the corner now, I've got tons and tons of standard Nerf guns that me and my son used to play with, and then myself and James, some other partner in the business. We were sat at a coffee shop and we started talking about Nerf guns. We started talking about our ex love for airsoft and paintball and how we don't do it anymore. And now it's a real shame that when people buy Nerf guns for their kids or whatever, they play with them for like a couple of days and they get dusted in the corner or they get put in the loft or whatever. And then we said, well, why don't we? We know a load of people who would be into it. Why don't we just get a few people down to your music venue and we'll just have like a battle and see how it kind of works out. And then one of us said, well, hold on a second. Why don't we start retailing and why don't we start doing events? And then it just kind of exploded from there. Um, Coincidentally, it happened that I was going to Singapore in September for the Formula One. So Sabre are out there. So just as I do, being in sales and being fairly good at networking, just made a few phone calls and WhatsApps and got the deal with Sabre, then got a deal with Worker. Now we got a deal with HC and everybody else. And we're doing events and it's just nuts. I can't believe that we've actually hosted events and we're actually selling stuff. It's pretty crazy, and it all stemmed from one conversation. And now, much like the other guys, just got tons and tons and tons of gear and want more and more. So yeah, pretty cool.
Fair enough then. So for tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing the Crisis in Karhazi event there. Mark, do you want to give us a brief overview of the venue where it was hosted and the event itself and what was going on in your head when you essentially designed a Milsim-esque narrative storyline? Walk us through that one.
Yeah, so again, somebody that I used to work with probably about 15 years ago, I bumped into in a pub, and we got talking and started talking about Nerf, and he said, "Oh well, I work at West Midlands Airsoft. I'm their repair guy or whatever." I said, "Oh, do you reckon your boss would be up for having a Nerf event?" And he kind of laughed. Then I turned up with a few blasters, and they weren't laughing anymore, especially with the power that they're outputting. And it kind of stemmed from there. So it's a fully fledged, purpose built airsoft site. They have their events on pretty much all week round. So it's very CQB kind of focused, but from end to end, as it's in like a bit of a V shape, I suppose. You're probably talking about 25, 30 meters, I think, from end to end. So there's a really good balance between trying to snipe people and getting people around tight corners. Again, that happened completely accidentally in terms of the venue, but because we'd done a previous event there, we knew what to expect for this time. And I think it kind of stemmed from certainly my love of video games and James's kind of understanding of airsoft and paintball. And we kind of said, well, it'd be really cool to have a game of almost consequence where it's not just capture the flag and it's not just going on the bomb, but depending on the outcome for each team, that's then going to change the next game type that you have and then ultimately change the storyline. So we kind of wanted to fuse the whole idea of, I suppose, video games and Nerf and airsoft and paintball kind of all together, and that's kind of what we came up with.
Okay. So, what did we all take then? What else? What was your thinking as attendees then, before we could sort of get started into the round by round deconstruction of the event? What was everybody taking along to it? Who wants to go first?
Well, knowing that what the FPS cap was on it was going to be, my thinking was mainly we're going to get completely bodied because we didn't have any blasters in our team that came close to the FPS cap, and I just thought I'm going to have to compensate for this by being a devious sod and trying to ambush people because in the open they're just going to outrange me.
I played against you. Devious sod is just it's sort of your modus operandi, mate.
So I took my standard for these kind of things, which is I took my Griffin. I don't think I ever actually used it, but I took my Griffin and I took my Nightingale. No, I did use the Griffin. And I took my Nightingale. I took my new Fury X just because I've not used it yet. One of my teammates, Wookie, decided to be a complete lunatic and took an unmodified X-Shot lock blaster and actually used it. I was like, "You're doomed." But I mean, that's what he wanted to use. So he had a Fury X as well for when he wasn't using that. But he's a lunatic. He likes to make things hard for himself. What did duct tape take? What did duct tape take even?
I think there's from the footage that you sent me over to edit, I think there's a dictator.
Yes, that was actually mine, but I loaned it to him because that dictator is a point of contention between me and him.
Who was running the rival blaster? X-Shot Meteor, was it? Or something along those lines?
That was again Wookiee in one round, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. But no, that dictator, there's a history there. So I finally caved in and let him use it, and didn't even charge him rent. But no, I think that's mostly it. We tend to pass blasters back and forth between us a lot. So something that was in my hands one round, it's now one of them's got it. So the lines get blurred.
But for 200 FPS, you're more or less working on rate of fire over accuracy then.
Yeah, and trying to sneak up on people.
Yeah.
So I brought my SBL2 EX that I'd had to tune down for 200. My SBL2, which I was going to use as a loner, but then turned out it was too heavy for him to actually use. My BK as a loner, which the guy I was loaning kit to, ended up using for the entire night. I was fielding the first test of my new HPA sniper core build, that I ended up not using because it was hitting 130, I think it was, instead of 200. And then Diana is a sidearm that got well used during that game. And also, so my FDL, in case I wanted 140 rounds in like 12 seconds of suppressive fire.
Elma?
I went a bit off plan. I was intending to take my inverted scales AEB, but that exploded its board as it often does, and the new one arrived the day after the game. So I went with a Seagull, which I tuned to 150 feet per second as I struggled to prime at 200. So that was a nice amount to get in closer and be a bit more rapid fire with as well. And I took my OFD quick as a sidearm, which I probably pulled twice, and I didn't really need it, to be honest. The Seagull was reliable.
Okay, then. Right, well, if we're all comfortable with that, then why don't we move on to the round by round discussion? So I'm essentially just going to hand it over to Mark just now, and Mark can talk through each of the rounds there. What happened? What was first up on the gameplay then, Mark?
So I think it's really important with kind of a new venue that nobody's been to. If you've been to an event before and you're regularly attending venues, you're going to roughly know what the layout is and the score is and everything else. So we obviously allowed, before we did briefings, etc., we allowed people to have a look around upstairs, kind of get an idea of what they were dealing with. But I think places tend to start to look a little bit different once you start playing and once the foam starts flinging. So especially because we had a couple of new players in and people who'd never done these type of events before. We started out with team deathmatch, just because there was no real objective. People could kind of go around at their own pace, and kind of scope out both sides. So I think we just set for the first one, I think it was 50 deaths on a clicker. And it was really, really interesting because there wasn't like a central, certainly for watching it and marshalling it, it didn't seem like, because there was a central point objective, people were holding back. But again, I think that's a really good thing because it enables people to work out where the corners are and really, really feel out the venue.
How many people were there in total on the day?
So including myself and James, who were marshalling the entire time, was 21. We did discuss, is one of us going to be a player marshal or not? So there was a slight unevenness about the team. So there were 19 people playing.
Okay, so but a good amount of bodies each side there. You were only doing cat and
Yeah.
mouse, but you still had enough to worry about where the other people were coming from.
Absolutely, yeah, and because the venue's split in a V with like almost like an archway tunnel splitting the two sides apart, we switched up which side we were using. So typically at that side they'll have 40 people playing, so 20 a side, and you can use the whole thing. So we just decided to split it up just to make it a bit more chaotic. Because it would have felt, I think, in my mind, a bit fragmented. And if 3-4 people on a team were out, it would have felt like one team would have been isolated. So yeah, we just used half the venue and switched it round depending on what type of game we were playing.
Okay. So team deathmatch, not really much in terms of objectives apart from wearing the arena. How did you feel that worked in terms of an introductory game? Any interesting discoveries when you're running around the arena? How did you feel learning to navigate it worked out for you?
I was getting lost constantly myself.
I know you were getting lost constantly.
Yeah,
See the
there's
amount of
lots of footage
editing
of
of your footage where you're walking around going, I have no idea where the respawn is. Hello.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
On you go, mate. On you go. Anybody else? Or was everybody else repeating what Garbutt was doing, which is getting lost?
I mean, it was
stuck to pretty much the same route each time I got tagged, just to make sure I didn't get lost. It's quite big to go straight into. Finding your way around while there's a lot of fire going on takes a little while in there.
I'm sure I've got
been
the apologies, Ginger. I'm sure I've got I haven't included it in the actual edit, but Garbutt, you sent me a walk around to give an example. So what I'll do is I'll put that overlay just now up on up where I am, so that players watching this can be able to sort of see the 2 or 3 minute walk around that you've done there, just to give them an idea of just how big it is. and how dense it is in terms of scenery and terrain, and therefore how easy it is to get lost. Because there's numerous points where I'm thinking, I have no idea where you are when I was trying to do that there.
Yeah.
Anybody else there?
Actually, if you watch the video
I,
that got uploaded to YouTube, it demonstrates just how disorientating the deathmatch was. Because at the end of it, you see the guy who took the video's last tag. He's on my team, and he tags me in the back, and that was his last tag before someone got him.
Jane, do you think
I
you were
mean,
going to chip in with something there, mate?
yeah, sorry. I'd managed to go to the first event that Mark had held that, so I was probably a bit more prepared for not getting lost. But it was at that point that I'd found my HPA blast was firing at 130 and not the 200 that it was supposed to be. So I was like, why are these darts falling short? So I spent most of the time checking for leaks and then realizing, oh, I'm going to go swap blasters at this point. So that was my sort of experience with it. It was a good, fun match to start off with.
Okay then. Okay. So
I
on to
think
the
as well, just to chip in on that as well, from our point of view, is one thing that we're really trying to do is make sure the teams are balanced, because we had a mix of people that we kind of
yes.
play with on a real regular basis who all know each other. They know how each other play and they know the strengths and weaknesses. And again, you talked about your loadouts and stuff. I noticed everything from worker Harriers that were there, that were slightly lower powered. There was Seagulls. There was BK1s. So there was a whole plethora of things. So what we wanted to make sure is that one side, as Garbutt mentioned, weren't just running 130 to 150, and the other side was running 200. It needed to be as balanced as possible. So actually running the team deathmatch was a good marker for us, as well as GOs and marshals, just to make sure that the teams were as what we thought were as balanced as they possibly could be. And I think the good news is from that team deathmatch, we did it both times. Each team won. So from that point of view, we kind of knew that we were okay at that stage.
Nothing standing out as glaringly obvious and needs to be addressed in, no?
Yeah.
Excellent. Good call. Do you want to go on with the actual event itself then? On to the first proper story round then?
Yeah, so the first round, so effectively with Karhazi, you've got a colonel that you're trying to capture, and you don't know whether he's on your side or on the enemy's side, but at this point in the game, you're assuming he's on your side. So you had to locate and retrieve the colonel, who was a very well placed dummy. And of course, the rules were that if you got hold of the dummy itself, you could only walk with him. You couldn't fire your blaster, and if you got hit with the dummy, you had to leave him where he was. And the enemy team, if they wanted to, or the freedom fighters, could pull the dummy back to his original position. So it was a bit of a tug of war on that point of view. And whether you got him or whether you didn't, that then determined the next round.
Okay. So that's something that I clearly didn't pick up on when I was doing the editing. Garbutt's thing is you could actually the freedom fighter team, which Garbutt was on, could actually pull the dummy back. That's an unusual. Oh, that's a normally like when we've been doing games like that, they sort of say, right, the defending team can't actually interact with the dummy at all, or they can't interact with whatever object it is that you're trying to extract from, a situation. It's like, so when it's, you can't move it, you can't interact with it anyway, you can't stand on it, stop it, etc. But the idea that you just go, no, 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 he's coming back with us,
It just
Get
adds an
back
element
here.
of rather than well, in our minds anyway, rather than everything then being centered and it constantly moving forward and there being new fire points, the team attacking didn't really know whether the dummy was going to be in the same position or not. Were they going to defend that position? So it just made it a bit more to and fro. So yeah,
But it
that was the
would,
idea.
the first thing that would jump out to me is it would absolutely reinforce the requirement to work as a team. Because one of the things that in the hobby is you nerf you. Okay, players are free to play nerf as they want to play nerf. So you'll often get people on the same team just running off and doing their own thing. Okay, the people who just want to sit and
Yep.
fling foam, the people who want to play strategically, they'll do their own thing. But the whole idea is, please be aware you do need to actually play the objective for this one. And then the very idea
Yeah.
that it's not just this moving point of contact where everybody's going to be focusing around. It's a case of, I'm going to be there anymore, So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing that Mitchell just simply says, no, you need to pay attention. You need to play as a team there. So I'll turn it over to our guests there. How do we think that all worked there?
If I could just jump in, I don't actually
Please do,
think
Ginger.
we realized or worked out from the briefing that we could move the dummy back as our team because both Garbutt and I were on the Freedom Fighters. And as soon as the opposition got the dummy, we kind of were, oh, they've got the dummy. And then I think we both got tagged out rather quickly after that. And then they got the dummy back to their safe zone. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that if I'm not going to say that it should have been explained better in the briefing. I'm putting that entirely on myself and our team, but we did not process probably is the best word that we could have dragged the dummy back. But it was a good fun game that one I thought.
I think there was definitely a point during the footage where Garbutt could have just went, mine, and pulled it
Yeah,
back.
they managed to move it like a foot and get tagged and dropped it, and it's only moved like 12 inches. Just leave it there. And the next guy who grabbed it, I'd been tagged out. I couldn't stop him. I think you emptied your Diana at him, Ginger. The next guy who grabbed it, scarpered, and I was having to respawn, so I don't know what happened, but I presume he got away because the game ended fairly soon after, as I recall.
Yeah. I feel I don't want to be that guy where they're like, oh, they weren't taking their hits, but I do feel that maybe I feel that some of my shots definitely should have hit. Whether they did or not, I can't tell. I didn't have a camera or anything. But I don't know what to say about that really.
Now, Western Wind, I think one of the things that I will put my hands up to previously is I know that in the heat of the games, one of the things that we've got as a rule is don't yeet a grenade at somebody. I have broken that rule numerous times just out of sheer enthusiasm, where you're meant to carefully throw the grenade underarm, and I just launch it like a football, across the arena through a doorway and possibly hit somebody in the head. So yeah, I'll be the first one to put my hands up and say that during the fast-paced gameplay, I've I've ignored a rule accidentally or not quite necessarily followed things as stringently as maybe should have been done. So we're all human. We all get caught up in the things there. Elma, yourself, what did you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I know I was with some of the players who are quite local to AllTheDarts, and they played quite well as a team. So I went down the other side to give them a bit of cover, and I was having good fun just popping out, shooting, taking a few hits myself. It was really fast paced. I didn't even realise they actually had the dummy and got back and wasn't sure who'd won at the end. But it was just fast paced, fun game really for me.
Okay. Anything, Mark, that you think didn't work and you would change knowing what you know now? Or do you think you kind of hit the sweet spot where you got it right?
Yeah, I think really, I mean, we'll come on to this in some of the later games, but I think that you kind of hit the sweet spot when it comes right down to the end. So if you're setting a time limit of 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes, whatever it is, if it really comes down to that last minute, you know that you've nailed it because each team's had a really great opportunity to try and either attack or defend. And I think, again, after kind of like team deathmatch and the instructions and everybody's trying to get used to not only their equipment if they've been tuning it, the arena, their teammates, and everything else, and the objectives. The first game can almost be that ultimate litmus test. So I think no matter what you try and put in place, the first game is always going to be either over really quickly, or it'll be a major success. And I think that really we were kind of somewhere in between on that. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what I'd do differently to change that other than it would probably be a lot longer with more people because as people are getting tagged out, you've still got a lot more people on that team to kind of defend. But again, as we'll find out in a bit, it did kind of level itself out a little bit. So yeah,
Good. Well, if we're all comfortable with the rescue the hostage one, Mark, do you want to talk us through the next one? In fact, actually, my question to yourself is, so we've established that the Spec Team Alpha, the opposing team, essentially for the footage that I'll publish, they rescued a hostage. Okay.
Mhm.
What would have been the impact to the game if they hadn't rescued the hostage? Because that was what I want to know.
So it would effectively have gone on to like an extraction mission. So any of the lose scenarios were either you had to extract, you had to get out, so almost like you were in a proper military exercise whereby your mission has been failed. The enemy know that your mission has been failed, so you've got to get out. So that would have been a defend your position type game. Now, this that I'm holding up here is actually the map of what it was meant to look like. We did something in between because you do have to kind of think on the fly.
Mhm.
But yeah, each one, if you then, for example, if you defended your position as the losing team, you would then go on to a winning side game. So if you lost everything, you'd play about 4 games. But if you lost one, lost one, lost one, lost one, you play about 7. So you had an opportunity to kind of come back.
Cool. All right, then. Well, on to the next round then. On you go.
Yeah, so next round was with the hostage secured, Alpha need to capture 3 sets of codes in brown envelopes to learn the location of their extraction point.
So, who wants to go first on the discussion of the secure the codes round then?
I was on the team that was looking for the codes. I think I'm the only one, and
I think so, yeah.
And that was a hard round. We found 2 out of 3 of them. One of them was up some stairs, just on a panel on the right. With everything going on, I think some of our players went past and didn't notice it.
Well,
Um,
if it's any consolation, I think a bunch of our guys walked straight past them and didn't see them either.
Oh yeah, I walked past it a few times and nothing. I think the light wasn't working on that one as well, which might have had something to do with not being able to see it as much. Because usually with all the stairwells, there's a light that's motion activated, but it just didn't seem to work when I was walking up and down. So that might have had something to do with it. But
I
yeah,
mean, we were warned that the last one was well hidden.
we were. The amount going on, trying to keep some ground so you can searching, not getting hit all at once. That was incredibly difficult, actually. It was good fun. I think it could have perhaps gone on a little bit longer, would be the only thing on that round because of how well hid the third one was. It needed a little bit longer to find it, maybe, would be the only suggestion to improve that round.
Do we happen to have a
side.
picture then of where it was hidden that we can pop on screen? Or
I didn't take one. I can describe it because it was really evil on my part, so I remember putting it there. So if you imagine you've got a stairwell which is mainly made of like 2x4 CLS and OSB, so it is brown like wood, and the folders that we put the codes in were brown as well. So they blended in quite remarkably well into the wood. And again, they got like I can't remember whether it's A, B, or C that was on there. I think it was in red pen. So unless you really looked for it, you'd never know. But we did brief that they wouldn't be in obvious places. So yeah, it was a bit sneaky.
Yeah, I remember seeing it after the round. Somebody, I think you guys showed us where it was. And as you're going up the stairwell, whereas Ginger said, the lights didn't work properly. And just against the wall, I think propped upon a pipe, leaning flat against the wall, is this brown envelope. And unless you are specifically checking the wall as you walk past it, you know, if you're just looking up the stairs, wondering if someone's going to tag you out from at the top of the stairs, you know, you try not to get tagged. You could just walk straight past it so easily.
What we didn't get to do, because we didn't find that third folder though, there was quite an interesting bit. If you found all 3 folders, that wasn't the job done. You then had to get down to the bottom of the stairs, which is just outside the 2-play arenas, and you had to crack a code made up of what was on each of the 3 folders to progress as a win. So even if you got all 3 folders back to your respawn, you still had to move under fire halfway across the arena, exit to one side, and get down and crack the code within the time limit. So that bit was quite interesting. I wanted to see how the code went, but not finding the 3rd folder, we didn't get to find out.
Okay, so I'll put it back across to Mark just now then. How devious was the code?
It wasn't actually that bad. I can't remember what the code was, but the reason why we kind of went with 3 is because really there's not too many combinations of that. And I think if people were struggling, like we weren't going to be total dicks about it, we would have said, all right, fair enough. Maybe the first number is this and made it a little bit easier. But the whole idea of it is that it was not meant to be easy.
3 numbers, 6 combinations.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So essentially, Strike Team Alpha failed to secure the 3rd code, and by extension, failed to crack the code to successfully extract himself from the arena. So, what was the impact upon the game because of that moving forward?
So that was where they had to go for an evac. Alpha have to hold out against repeated waves of freedom fighters. So Alpha, each of the team members had 2 lives each, which were marked by tape on their backs. And they don't have to return to spawn. They're just in one area. So effectively, the enemy team are just trying to take them out at this point. They have a medic who can revive them in the field. So all they had to do was stop, put their hands up. Once the medic came along and ripped off the sellotape that we put on their backs, they were free to go straight back in. But the freedom fighters had got unlimited lives, but must return to spawn, and they're released every 60 seconds. So if Alpha was successful in taking out all of the enemy would then wait and start from spawn again in 60-second waves. And this was a very, very interesting one because, and this was a big learn for us, we did supply grenades to Alpha. So because they were Mark 5 grenades, and this is something that we're looking to change in the future. Ultimately, the venue sell grenades, so they want to use their own. But we want to use cap grenades. So it is a conversation at the moment. Good old capitalism. Good old capitalism. So because some people hadn't heard a Mark 5 go off, we bought them and I set one off, and they are obviously quite loud. And one of the players who was fairly new, had got like sensory issues, and it kind of triggered off some of those. So in a double-edged sword kind of way, I'm glad that I did the test so that we knew that he was going to have those problems. But equally, I didn't even think that would be potentially a problem. I get that people might get scared by it, but I didn't think it would trigger anything else off. So Alpha had a few grenades, and they, Alpha won, I think, was it the final seconds of that? No, the Freedom Fighters won.
We won at the last moment.
6 seconds.
It was literally
I think it was on the clock or something.
It was single digit seconds were left on the clock. Yeah, so that was the
it
moment
that
where I went.
time?
Okay.
I didn't realise that at the time.
It was single digit seconds.
Touch on briefly is that because we haven't mentioned it yet, and it is important for how the whole thing unfolds. What people are thinking as they go into the as a game starts is that very frequently Alpha wouldn't know what the freedom fighters' briefing or mission objectives were necessarily, and we wouldn't know theirs. So, for example, in one of the later rounds that we'll talk about in a bit, when they were trying to move across the arena and reach an extract. We knew they were trying to reach an extract, but we didn't know where. So we are having to try and work that out on the fly and work out then the best way to block them. So that often led to some really interesting fog of war where you're trying to puzzle out exactly what the enemy team are in fact up to. I just thought I'd mention that because it does change things a lot when you don't necessarily know what the enemy team are going to do next.
I think that's a brilliant way to do things, because you don't have you've got asymmetrical objectives by its very nature of the game, but hidden asymmetrical objectives just elevates it even further because then it becomes mind games, and it's like, that to me would be fantastic just to think, I know what we've got to do. What are they doing? And apart from the usual one is they're probably going to try and kill us, but what are they actually up to? They're not rushing us, Sarge. Why are they not rushing us? So anything else about that particular one there?
Yeah, we wouldn't have lasted as long if I hadn't borrowed Mark's, or what's it called, Abraham, That thing had quite a high rate of fire compared to my Seagull, and it did go the full length that you could see for clear. So, although I got took out more quickly because I was essentially a machine gunner right in the middle with my head up, and I think at the start it kept them back a little bit longer, which might have helped us to get that close to the timer because we were just, yeah, they were everywhere and we couldn't move. So it was pretty hard with just two lives to stay on your feet for that one. That was good fun though. I like the pressure of that and the speed of it. So to throw that in after the long, sort of high mental load rounds was that was a good move, good way for it to unfold.
I mean, I
Uh,
imagine from with only two lives, I imagine from the point of view of Alpha, you were trying to be very defensive, very conservative. The important thing is to not die, not get tagged out. Whereas I can't speak for Ginger, but knowing that I basically had unlimited lives and would just keep coming back in the next wave, my mindset kind of became scream Odin and charge.
yeah. How many how many medics was there on the
Just
Strike Team
one.
Alpha?
He
One
wasn't
is
very
one.
good either. You'd shout medic and he'd look at you like he needed a medic himself.
Oh, no.
Okay. So
I
I
mean,
think
could
the key
did
to that,
on you go.
yeah, go on, the key to that really was just try and take the medic out, but nobody knew who the medic was unless you saw him reviving somebody. You wouldn't
Yeah.
have known who he was. So the key
I,
was just take the medic out. So
I do recall what's waiting for the next wave to be released. Several of us stood in the respawn, trying to, going, look, if we can take out the medic, then we can roll them. But we've got to find the medic.
we
on
just
on
need
the
all we need to do is commit a war crime to win. That's all we need to do.
I mean,
Geneva
the medic had
suggestions.
no discerning markings, so I believe under the Geneva Conventions we were clear. But just on the topic of the medic and the briefings, I did feel, especially for that game, that the briefings maybe were not the most clear because we were, I
Yeah,
think, originally told that the medic had unlimited lives, and that really confused a lot of us because like, well, how are we meant to take out the medic? And then I think it was halfway through, most of the way of the game, it was then informed to us that the medic only has two lives, but he can just respawn himself, and that obviously cleared up a bit of the confusion. But I just thought briefing might have been a bit clearer there. But it was yeah, very fun, very down to the wire. 6 or 9 seconds, I think it was,
yeah.
left until the timer, and yeah, it was just because I know that we got quite a few of them out, and then it was like racing around the whole arena. Where's the medic? Where's the medic? Where's this last person? And then eventually we did get them. But yeah,
Do we know how many of the people actually used up both their wives on Strike Team Alpha? Or like, what was the
all of
ultimate
them,
way?
because
Yeah.
the only way that the freedom fighters could win is all of them were tagged out with both their lives gone.
But if there was no medic to revive them, they would essentially be stuck in a limbo position of one life left over but no respawn available because the medic was down.
Yeah, we were, and we even got
Yep.
used to cover by the medic at that point when it got toward the end.
Absolute
Faith in your
chaos.
medic when he's using the injured party as a bullet shield.
Legitimate tactic.
That I think it does breach the Geneva Conventions.
When I've been running around doing photographs of an event, I've been used as a human shield by certain people.
I think I might have done that once or twice at
Yes,
Humber, actually.
yes. It's usually Bonehead that does it, you know.
Sounds
But
like him. Them.
yeah, he's got a particular way of doing it. But no, I think there's one footage where he's like he's actually sitting there. I'm sitting there with the camera. He's just literally perched over my shoulder. Like, don't move, Dave. I'm not going to.
There's,
But
it's already up on your channel from a game at Bristol Blast. A really nice one when my teammate Wookie was just being a photographer. And I spot about 3 of the enemy team running up behind him. I was like, move! I couldn't shoot past him.
auto war crime.
In fact, in fairness, it doesn't really matter if you're a medic with a little like red cross on you, or whether you're a marshal with a fluorescent high vis jacket. You are still going to take hits, as I found out a couple of times.
Yeah.
So that element of it was funny.
players see someone moving, it's like, oh, target fixation. Just
Trigger figure.
yeah.
I'm notorious for that. The amount of games I've been at where I've rounded a corner, I've seen movement in the darkness enemy, and just put 3 or 4 rounds into somebody who then turns out to be on my team.
Oh yeah, James and I've done that quite a few
Yeah.
times.
Which actually jumps neatly into there's a few times during your videos, Garbutt, where it's friendly fire that hits you, but you then go and respawn. Was there a friendly fire rule in place?
Yeah.
Or is
So
it-
if you got hit by friendly fire, you were out.
Oh, that would have been fun with some people I know.
Wasn't it also that not only the person you tagged were out, you who tagged them were also out, or am I remembering a different game?
That was the rule from Newbury a couple of weeks ago. And
Oh,
actually,
okay.
when I heard Jim say that, I was like, I'm going to steal that because that's a great idea. That
Mm.
if you friendly fire your own teammate, both of you are out. I think that's kind of fair. So that was one learn from that. But yeah, basically you get hit by anything and you're out. There was actually I have got one piece of footage and talking about people calling their hits and whether you're out or not. And Elliot got called out when I was right in front of him, and it was almost like it happened so quickly. I couldn't really tell. And I watched the footage back when I got there with my camera, and it was actually a wall bang that got him. But it was so close to the wall and it was so close to him. It was really difficult to tell, but he kind of took the hit and went ahead of it. So aside from I think a few isolated incidents from that kind of point of view, it was fairly well managed.
Yeah, I know Garbutt was quite quick to take the Mark V that went off. Which is lovely watching that in slow motion, by the way, mate.
Yeah.
It's like the entire
looked-
screen goes orange.
I looked right at it just in the split second before it went off. I just about had time to think, crap.
It was
and
quite funny to
then I
witness
was
that.
deaf.
Yeah. And then you just sort of like, oh, well, that's me, I'm dead. You get up, and then actually, it was one of the marshals, and you sort of double check, was I out? And yeah, but the very fact that you just assumed, well, it was close
Yeah.
enough to that.
Because the marshal wanders past saying to calling back to the enemy team, you didn't get anybody. And I thought, hang on, I thought that got me and Wookie, and so we asked, and yes, it had. He hadn't spotted us. But no,
I mean
we were
those
tagged by that.
you two were the only casualties of that evening to die via grenades, I think. The others didn't weren't very
Achievement.
effectively used, I found.
I know.
I
I learned because next time a grenade went off, I was running up this kind of narrow corridor, and I heard echoing around the corner ahead of me, grenade. Immediately skidded to a halt and just braced against the wall, waited for the boom, and then charged around the corner. Well, the next one didn't nowhere near me.
I think that's kind of like the beauty and the challenge as well with the Mark Fives because they are so loud.
Yeah.
You kind of have to almost announce that they're there. So if you're gonna get hit by one, you definitely know you've been hit. But I think because it's got that like time delay on it, rather than something like a cap grenade where it's immediate, you generally find that people just run in the opposite direction. So it's almost like this scarper thing that happens with it. But it certainly had an element of it, and you could hear it throughout the building. So you've been hit by a Mark V.
They are pretty wild, and if you
Yeah.
catch it in slow motion, they do actually look quite pretty when they go off. Just everything's orange. Yeah. Anything else to say on that particular round there?
I think, like I say, just the briefings could have been a little bit clearer in certain areas, but I think maybe part of the confusion really added to the fact that it went down to the absolute wire. And like I say, I think if you get it down to the wire, you've had a really balanced game. And in fact, Elliot, one of the other game organisers, said exactly that. He goes, "You nailed that because it went down to the last 10 seconds." So that was a real highlight for me.
It did. Next up, what was the next round after that?
So because Alpha have been forced to retreat, and they've been injured ultimately because all of them have been wiped out. They've got to move themselves and a wounded teammate to an extraction point. But they'll need to collect 3 distress beacons along the way. They're big yellow milk jugs. The Freedom Fighters have got unlimited respawns again, but don't know where the target extraction point is that Alpha are trying to get to. If Alpha can get the hostage and all 3 beacons to the extraction point, they win. Anything else is a loss. and they can do it in any order they wish.
Sorry, just to jump in. I thought that was the game that we only had 40 respawns as the Freedom Fighters.
We may have changed it. I honestly can't remember. Did we
I seem
change
to
it to
remember
40?
40 lives for the Freedom Fighters, for that one, but I might be mistaken. Garbutt, do you have any?
In my notes that me and Wookie put together when we were going through the GoPro footage, I've got it said that the Freedom Fighters had unlimited spawns.
Okay.
I don't know whether he changed it because I think at that point the Alpha were losing quite a bit, so we wanted to level it out. But either way, it was either 40 or unlimited. But I think for the time of game that we played it, it wouldn't have been a million miles off either way.
Fair dues. So, how do we think that particular round went? Interesting. So, working on the idea that the teams were given individual briefings, and essentially the other team's objectives were hidden from the one team. So, Strike Team didn't know what Freedom Fighters were doing. They must have identified where the extraction point was for them to then go and secure the beacon. So they must have known where the extraction point was, which would be different from the secure the code round, where you had to go and secure the codes and then go to a particular location and crack a code. Are my understanding that right?
Yeah, so all Team Alpha knew is that they need to get the beacons, which would then lead them to the extraction point, which was upstairs. And really, the Freedom Fighters should have worked out if there's a yellow beacon on the floor, it probably means something. But we hadn't told them at that point that you're looking out for yellow beacons.
I mean,
We were told that actually.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, we were given the briefing that defend the 3 yellow beacons, and that Team Alpha have to get the kernel or dummy, whatever, to a location. We weren't then told what the location was. We were also told that if they didn't get all 3 beacons and the dummy, then they failed the mission. But yeah.
We didn't know where they were trying to get to, but we knew they
That was
needed
it.
to
Yeah,
get
that was it.
these beacons first. So I think the general plan became, if we've still got even one beacon at the end of the round, that's a win. So so the basic plan was you find a beacon, you guard it. I know. I think my footage is a lot of time of me lurking in a window where I could, by leaning out, could see 2 of the beacons from where I was hidden.
Yeah, because there was a certain thing, like, you're not doing a lot of moving in this round, and then I sort of spotted myself like the footage. Oh, that's why you're not moving. This is there.
Yeah, I was where I needed to be, so I stayed put.
Exactly. Yeah. What gap for you to be shot? Everything else more or less just armor. Like, cool. Yeah, I'm not moving.
Yeah. It was actually great. There was somebody fired at me a lot whilst I was in there, but I think they were up in one of the 2 crow's nests. But because they always aimed high when they fired at me, and I would just hear the high velocity rounds smack off the wood above my head, and I'd duck and I'd like lean out again. I couldn't work out where they were, but they knew exactly where I was. They just couldn't hit me for some reason. So that was a great way to induce some paranoia.
All right, and
I think as well at one stage I did laugh because we have some players that maybe English isn't their first language, so you do kind of try your hardest to get across like what the objectives are, and I think that's one learn that we've taken from it. If we actively know that somebody's coming where the English isn't their first language, maybe we print out the briefings in their native language if possible, or at least give them the briefings prior. So at one stage, of course, the objective is to get your wounded teammate to the extraction point. I caught one of the Alpha team members grabbing the dummy and taking it back to spawn, and I was like, "You've now got to do all of that work again." And the teammates were mega annoyed, but it was funny just watching them panic. So yeah, that might have changed things.
Oh dear.
Where was the place they had to get the dummy to? Was it at the bottom of the crow's nest stairs? Was it at the top of that crow's nest?
Top of the crow's nest, yeah.
Because Jim Jam was alone up in that crow's nest with just his HPA Supercord Neutrino and his Diana, and he held off their entire team almost alone for that entire game, and he did a brilliant job there. But that would have been a case where I feel cap grenades, you just pop one of those in the crow's nest and it's game over. It was a really fun game, that one, I thought.
Yeah, if you're throwing a Mark V up the stairs, you'd be like, hearing aids for you then,
Yeah. I think the kind of almost invisibility of a cap grenade, though, just coming up there would have taken him by surprise. At least the Mark V, the way that the stairs were, as you come up the stairs, there's like panels kind of either side. So technically, he would have had a chance to get behind hard cover. I mean, he still would have known that it would have been very loud, but I think the almost like invisibility of cap grenades would have taken him by surprise. And I think Jim even admitted that himself. He said it would have been nice for somebody to chuck a cap grenade up at me because it would have taken me out and changed the dynamic of it.
Yeah, yeah. Elma, what do you think? How do you think that particular round went for you?
I didn't last that entire round. I started feeling a bit ill, so the first mag of it went pretty well. And then I went and sat outside for most of that one.
Fair enough. Anything else then for you two?
Sorry?
Anything else for the Freedom Fighter team to add into that then?
On a more serious note, it was, as already mentioned, there was a guy who had a sensory issue with the grenades and sat that round out. It's just want to bring up that Mark and the other guy whose name I forget, the other organizer who was acting as a mod during the game, I forget his name because I'm really bad at names, did adapt to that very quickly and was based once they realized this guy was having a sensory issue with the loud noise of the Mark Vs. So it's just like, okay, no more grenades for the rest of the night.
That is.
Because otherwise he wouldn't have been able really to take part. So
I thought
was
John
the right decision to make.
I thought the guy who had sensory issues, John, I thought he was back in for that round because it was only grenades were used for the
Yes, so I'm
medic round.
I'm getting my rounds mixed up because we were talking about grenades. But my point
John
stands
was back in for that one, but
he was back in. Yeah, but my point stands though is that it was the right decision to make to just go no more grenades. Otherwise, one of our players is going to be forced to sit the entire thing out. And that wouldn't have been
especially as he'd travelled down from Newcastle as well for that game, and it was I think it was also his first ever high FPS game as well.
So we didn't want someone sitting out like that. No way.
No, that's a smart decision. That is,
I think the biggest thing for me, like with all of this, really, is that we want to encourage as many like current nerfers to come and play, so they keep playing and they stay in the hobby and they stay enthusiastic. But ultimately, it's to get newer people to come along as well, so that the hobby side of it kind of grows. Jonathan, I picked him up from Jewelry Quarter in Birmingham, so he'd taken the train down, he got himself a hotel, and having a chat with him, I was really surprised that it was his first foray into anything apart from stock nerf, and I was thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting. But in fairness to him, he got the absolute VIP treatment from Ginge, in that as his first high FPS game in nerf, he was given a BK1S, and not only that, it was reliable the entire night. So two amazing things that happened.
I just hope he hasn't gone and bought a BK1S thinking they're all going to work for a whole night.
I don't think I've had a very successful game with that since then. So I'm lucky that worked for him. But yeah, I mean, I know that he was going to try and do Bristol Blast as well on the same day, like Jim Jam and I had. But he just ended up, I don't think, being able to sort out travel and that sort of thing. But God, that was a long day.
So you done Bristol Blast first, and then traveled.
Jim Jam and I had done Bristol Blast first, and then up to Karhazi, and then there was a crash on one of the motorways that led to, I think, 3 dead. That made our journey 3 hours. It was saying that was meant to take only an hour and a half, so we ended up leaving quite a bit early from Bristol Blast and made it on time, more or less, for Karhazi. But we had a great time for both events, really, though.
Yeah, we did consider doing Bristol Blast and then Karhazi, but when we looked at the travel times involved, it was like if even the slightest thing goes wrong. So we'd never been to Karhazi before. We opted to go for the new event, and that we weren't familiar with because new things meet new people.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, on that point on the grenades and stuff and that particular player, it was really important to make sure that everybody felt like they were included. So if there was kind of like a bit of a red flag of this person isn't going to play if X is happening, then we'd just readjust it for. And I think again, that's the learn for the future as well. Is mention, has anybody got any sensory issues with grenades and stuff, and then we'll kind of change the plan as we went. So that was an interesting learn, certainly from that perspective.
So just to clarify, they wouldn't have necessarily had an issue with the cap grenades. It would have. It's just because they're inherently quieter.
Yeah, it's just the Mark V was just insanely loud, and especially in the type of building that it was, the echo and stuff as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? It could have been the same scenario with cap grenades, and we would have taken the same stance on it. But I doubt it. So
I mean,
yeah.
I'd never encountered a Mark V before you demonstrated one, and that did shock the hell out of me.
Yeah, that was loud.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'd rather see cap grenades. That was too loud for indoors for my ears. I mean, it wasn't going to cause me sensory issues, but it did not leave my ears ringing for about a minute after it went off. I've only ever seen them outdoors before, and I think they are more outdoor oriented.
Again,
I think
don't have
I'm lucky.
Go on, Ginger.
I think I'm lucky that I've set off enough grenades in my hands right next to my ears that the Mark Fives are a bit less of an issue for me. But yeah, they are certainly very loud when in enclosed spaces with lots of hard, rigid buildings where the sound just echoes and there's nothing to deaden the sound.
I mean,
Chunky
my
self
first
moment,
encounter with
yeah.
cap grenades was all Ginger's fault. That was at Bristol Blast CQB.
I think most people attest to that. The reason why they encounter a grenade is because of that man right there. I know it was my first experience, and I was like, God, how many has he got? Has he even got a blaster? Like, is he just running around with grenades? Like,
yeah, it seems like that, doesn't it? Just this bandolier of grenades.
I mean, I did actually run that load out on Saturday. I went to I think it was a kid's birthday party, and we were allowed grenades. I was like,
Did you say when kids' birthday party not sort of give you a hint?
It was Nerf Shack's kids. So
fair enough.
They were like, grenades are okay because Mabel's done caves and all that. So I was like, okay, I might as well run around for at least one of these games. No blaster, just I think it was a bandolier of like 11 or 12 grenades that I just was chucking out left, right, and centre, and that was hilariously good fun.
Yeah, I remember coming back from Bristol Blast CQB having encountered cap grenades the first time, and my partner asked me how did it go, and I said, "Well, turns out grenades are really loud when they go off right next to you." And now I'm like, "No, I take it back. Cap grenades are not really loud."
Everything's relative.
Mark V thunder flashes are really loud, and I'm glad I wasn't closer to any of the ones that went off.
Thank God
I
we
didn't
weren't using
have any
BFGs.
sensory issues, but they do go off with a hell of a bang, don't they?
They are.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
They shake you up a bit, yeah.
Now, if we're all, I think we've discussed that one. Do we move on to the next one there, Mark? What happened after
Yes,
that?
this will be the final round. So this is Alpha's last stand because it was a lot of loss for Alpha. And again, just as a disclaimer, whatever, because a lot of the guys that were on Alpha are people that we play with. Really, they should have played harder and they should know better. No, I'll go on to what the actual plan was and how we probably would have changed things for the future in a bit. But this is Alpha's final stands. They are low on ammunition and manpower. I can't remember how many rounds we actually agreed for this, but I've got the notes. 50 rounds per player and 2 lives per player. Alpha attempts to fight their way out rather than being surrounded and wiped out. Once again, the Freedom Fighters attack in waves every 60 seconds. If Alpha managed to get a certain distance across the arena, the game pauses whilst the Freedom Fighters spawn point gets moved backwards. And then, yeah, there's a personal note here from Garb saying, a bit confused as I've missed the briefing due to standing in the toilet, which is fair enough. So, yeah. And I think that we kind of had to move this one on the fly, and there was a bit of confusion because of where both me and James were positioned. But that was kind of the idea of the game.
Yeah, there is a point during the footage where Garbutt was like, somebody want to tell me what's happening, please?
Yeah, more footage of me, being the consummate professional that I am at Nerf games, going, what is going on? I'm so confused.
Then followed by you all going to the second spawn point going, we're not all here yet, and the game just starting and everyone just like, run.
Yeah. And again, an interesting thing to note, because obviously the different briefings, the Freedom Fighters, we had no idea. Well, we didn't know that they had a 50 round limit. I think we knew that they were low on ammunition, but we didn't know anything more precise than they are low.
No.
I was just under the impression that the low on ammo thing was just that low on ammo, and it had no impact on the actual gameplay. I didn't realize
flavor text rather than actual
You're thinking
rule,
flavor text.
Yeah, they had 50 rounds between each, which I mean. As most of them using springers, it can be used rather well, but I think at least 2 of them were using high dart per second flywheelers, and that just went 50 darts. It just goes in a second if you're not careful.
Yeah. your full auto Nightingale. You can easily go through a magazine and that in under a second, can't you, Garbutt?
Mm,
So, yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I can do that. So, James, do you remember what your um briefing was, or Elma rather? Do you remember what your briefing was for that particular round, other than try not to die?
Unfortunately, I didn't play that round either. Still
Ah,
wasn't feeling great, and it's quite a long drive home. But I do remember listening to the others getting the briefing, and one of the things that I thought was good was when someone's out, you can nab their ammo off of them if they've got any left. So
that's cool.
that was quite a cool dynamic. If people are a bit trigger happy and still in towards the end of the round when other people are out, because you've got to get to the ammo to use it, then I wish I'd got to play that round, but I had to make it home, and it's a hell of a long drive as well.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
if you notice mine and Ginger's reactions just then, we did not know that they could scavenge ammo from each other. The
Mm.
freedom fighters did not know that at all.
I think that's something that no, I think that's something that would possibly ask if maybe you'd want to put that into the other one where it was unlimited lives. Because once we're out, that's it. You could just like, it's fine, take the ammunition, rather than having to go back to maybe like or wait or run out there. No, it's there's always things to learn there. But what did you think there of that particular one? As the freedom fighters were basically all we had to do was eliminate them. What do you think that round worked for you, pair?
Uh, I mean, I think it was, I don't know, 5, 10 seconds, maybe a bit more than that after the was blown that the freedom that strike team Alpha got all the way to the first checkpoint. So all the freedom fighters had to be pushed back, and that went very quickly. But after that, yeah, I think we really dug in. And I think part of our briefing was that if any of them made it to the extraction point, we lost. And I think we were then told that any of the strike team Alpha that made it through to the extraction point would then get to play in the next round. Those who didn't were lost to the desert or whatever. And I think one or two might have made it through, but it was not many. But I'm sure that Mark or Garbutt could confirm or
I
deny
don't
that.
think
But it
any of them
was,
made it.
oh, okay.
Mm.
Either way, it was a very
Yeah,
fun
because the whole
game.
idea was that the game after that was then going to be so the colonels kind of like you've captured him and gone through all this stuff. The colonels then turned on you and you have to kill him. So it would have been either myself or James as the colonel with a certain amount of lives, and he would have been protected by the amount of it would have been Alpha attacking the colonel to try and kill him with the amount of people that have been extracted. So it could have been 1 versus 18, or it could have been their whole team versus the other side. So it was going to be, yeah, but that for that reason, I don't think anybody made it through.
No, I'm pretty
Right.
certain nobody made it through.
I know there was a point where there was a bit of a false alarm during the footage where you call game end and then turns out just game pause, and
Yeah,
then there's like about another minute's worth of stuff afterwards. Nothing really much happens as Ginge and Garbutt try to find people, and then you just sort of walk past going game end. And I'm like, oh. you know.
yeah.
But
Again, I think
the idea of this whole just somebody turning on you right at the end. It's like he's all right, Marshall versus whoever survived.
yeah,
That that, that would have
That's a
been
and it
shame
would
that
have
never
been,
got to happen.
Mm.
yeah, we
There's
were in
always
two
next
minds
time.
as well.
There's always
Yeah, we were
next
in
time.
we were in two minds as well as to whether to give like the Marshall the HPA blaster with unlimited ammo, or whether to give him something really crap. Like we didn't really know which way it was going to go. It didn't actually get to that point,
Blow
unfortunately.
dart, blowgun
Um,
even.
yeah, blow dart. Yeah, yeah.
I know one of
But
the
no,
things
again, I
that
think there's a bit. Sorry, there's a bit of confusion with it, but I think that's where walkie talkies between the marshals would have really helped. Again, it's not something we considered, but it's definitely something we'll consider for next time.
I know it's one of the things that Spectre has done for the Kill Factory sequence of games that he's run, where it was the big bad. It was like an alien life form type thing, and it had what was it? It was like the proton pack, and like a full hopper's worth of ammunition, and like 5 life sort of thing, but you can only wound it if you hit it with like a rocket type thing. So I think if you were to give the Colonel a really, really crap weapon, I think it would have been a bit of a Mickey take. But if you were to give him something that was like, a God Hop or Prometheus, it'd be the case of where the hell were you hiding that? You know,
Yeah.
Prison wallet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, James. Thank you.
Today's
Yes.
disturbing mental image brought to you by Ginger.
Ah, okay, right. There's the line, and just walks across it. So yes, anything to say about that particular round?
I mean,
Again, I
again,
think.
sorry, go on.
Come on. No, you've got a better perspective than me.
Again, the whole when I wasn't going, what's going on? Because I'd missed our entire briefing because the toilet needed to happen. Once I found out that they were on limited lives and we weren't, it was again just the mindset just became blood and just you've got when you've got unlimited respawns, you've got nothing to lose by just going health leather and charging. So it may you don't have to worry about being cautious at all. Makes for faster gameplay.
It does there.
Yeah.
Anything for yourself, Ginge?
No, I think I've said everything that I wanted to on that
perfect.
game.
And Mark, anything for yourself about that particular round?
No, like I say, apart from the confusion between myself and James, that was the final game. I think, like anything, I think because you've got a few players that have been playing all day, and everybody, regardless of where they've come from, has had stuff to do during the day. Once you've been running around for that amount of time, each round being anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes, I think was the longest. I think it's the last round that people really start to get tired at.
Mm-hmm.
So we did notice a little bit of that, but generally it was high energy all the way through. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, so just open it up to everybody who wants to chip in about the event overall, anything that they would suggest. Mark, anything that you would do different for the future? You got any plans to follow the storyline on? Just free format to say anything about it as you'd like to say.
On the basis of the planning and the effort that me and James put in certain things that had to kind of change on the fly. I was pretty happy with where it went, and both myself and James and all the comments that people have made, we kind of picked up on. So it's not like when the feedback started coming back that we were kind of blindsided by it, which is quite good because it shows that we're ready to take it on board. I think the thing that surprised me is that when we initially envisaged it, we were going to get the teams to swap over. So each side would have had a chance to be alpha. Each side would have had a chance to be a freedom fighter. But I think that when we planned it out, there was a lot of idealism that was kind of built into it. So how long is it going to take to do a dart sweep? Well, we think it'll only take this amount of time. And our people, you forget, of course, that Nerf is a very, very social hobby as well. And people want to talk about their blasters and what they're running and what they're working on and everything else. So that kind of took a bit of time. And then, of course, there was us moving from area A to area B and how long that took. So the whole idea is that the teams would have had a chance to kind of play both sides. And it did. Like when we were getting through it, I was thinking we're not going to have time to do this. So that was a big learn. So again, I think that the outcome would have been different if we'd have rolled it the second time around, because people would have had half a clue of what was happening. But depending on the way that it kind of turned out, the outcome for the second round would have been totally different to the first round.
I mean, this was obviously for me and my friends, this is the first time we'd ever been to your event. So that was one of the things that decided us on going. It's like new event. We've never heard of this guy before. We've got no idea what it's going to be. Let's go along. If it's good, great. We're happy to support it. And no, we did have a good time. And much to our surprise, despite having what we expected to be underpowered blasters compared to the kind of thing that Ginger was bringing, for example. That smile, that smug little smile.
I don't have bills like mortgages and gas to worry about. So
no, we I think I remember saying to you at a time, Mark, that we're going to get absolutely bodied because our stuff is all pretty much 130 FPS or below, and much to my surprise, we didn't. So we had a great time, and actually having an event so close to us is great because there's almost nothing that runs in the Midlands.
No.
Watch
You
this
know,
space.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, I mean, we did play before James's other, main hustle running a music venue got extremely busy because of summer and everything else. We pretty much play every week, and there really would be a range of people playing with, either modified super stock, I suppose you call it, all the way up to right on the limit of 200 FPS in an even tighter space. And actually, we found that just changed the way that people played. You people running, Seagulls, or we did have one guy running a Harrier once, and we banned it because it was just too OP. They would typically hang at the back and support the guys running in with the Dianas or the Quicks, or whatever it might be, and that dynamic would really work. So we'd kind of half tested it out prior, and I think that we'd probably all admit that really in a 200 FPS cap game, certainly close quarters, there's not going to be a huge disadvantage to running, something like a Diana, or even something without that rate of fire versus something like a Seagull. It just changes the way that you play.
Yeah.
We ran it the first time round, and the cap was 250, and that we all admitted was a bit too much. There was 2 or 3 of us running higher FPS stuff, so lowering the cap I think was the right thing to do after the feedback. So yeah, and in terms, you mentioned earlier, are we going to carry on the story? We've thought about it. Our next event is going to be a 300 FPS, so it's going to be a super high cap.
Is that
At
the
a paintball
paintball
field.
place? Yeah.
Yeah, paintball field outside. All I will say is myself and James will talk about real world war events for hours, and it's actually boring. Like, I listen to our conversations sometimes and think so. And we've kind of taken, or will take, elements from films, so people will know roughly what the synopsis is. So one of the rounds that we've got will be very Black Hawk Down themed. But what we didn't want to do necessarily for a whole day was just run like capture the flag, domination, bomb, or whatever. But what we will be doing is introducing an element of competition that will have rules, set ammo limits. It takes a lot from quick flag, speed dart, all the airsoft stuff, and we'll build that into the day. So there'll be like a whole kind of storyline-esque stuff, bit of missions that are related to historical battles that have happened, and there'll be a section once we get to one field that'll be very competition orientated, 5 versus 5, one hit, blow, away you go. So that's the plan moving forward. And more sites, indoors and outdoors, just more nerf, to be honest. And also making sure that our games don't clash with anybody else's, because that's something that we've definitely got to try and avoid. But again, if this little hub in the Midlands starts to grow and more people kind of get into it, then there's certainly going to be space for the games up north, the games in the Midlands, and the games down south, all happening at the same time. And actually, I think we'd probably all admit that if we reach a stage where that is happening frequently, the hobby's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know, for example, Karhazi was on the same day as Foam Dart Thunder Pro 3 was. It was the same Saturday. Quite feasibly, I think it would be like an 8-hour drive for Sarah and I to attend this particular event we're talking about, and a 1-hour drive for us to go through to Port Glasgow for the Foam Dart Thunder one. I know which one I was going to do. So for me, the idea of it being on the same day, but essentially totally outside of feasible travel, wasn't an issue for me. But if it was somebody who was maybe equidistant between your event and an event further south, then yeah, I can appreciate how that could cause a few problems there. Unfortunately, you want to run events as many as you can sort of get away with, because not everybody can attend every event. And the idea of, well, we'll cancel ours because it's going to clash with something else is fine if the person can go to the other one. If they can't, then it's a case of, well, you've basically just lopped off somebody's Saturday game time. And we're, as a hobby, as much as we are in the process of recovering from the pandemic and whatnot there, we are still very much struggling to get back to where we were as a UK scene, where there was something on all the time, and you could quite happily, go to multiple or have multiple potential events to attend to. Whereas if it's a case of, I've got to put a lot of effort in just to go to this one because it's the one I can get to. Yeah, I can appreciate how people might feel a little bit nippy if they are put in a position of having to choose between which one. But if it's the only one they can get to, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as well, like the next few. I mean, I'm not going to mention the name of the blaster because it's Ginger's favourite subject, and I know that he loves it. But I do think there's an innovation around the corner that will change the hobby for the better. So I think that
Extra AB.
yeah. So I mean, from our perspective, we've got a lot of changes coming up with all the darts the next few weeks. A lot involving accountants and legal stuff, which is really fun, which I'm really looking forward to. But essentially, if we can get hold of a particular new blaster, we'll offer it out as a hire. So as well as having experienced Nerf as part of the community, which is really, really important, hopefully we'll start to see people who have got a bit of an interest in it coming along, using something that's actually fairly competitive for the venue that we're playing, love it, buy into it, they'll tell their mates, and it'll kind of spiral from there.
Guess we just have to hope it's more reliable. Sorry.
Yeah, yes, we do. And I'm hinging a lot of hope on that. I've had a few conversations with a few people, and they assure me that the influencers aren't wrong. But I think until you've got the thing in your hand and you've used it in your own way, you're never really going to know. But again, the point being is more events, more players, more people, more better, more Nerf. Like that's the way that I look at this whole thing. So
that's it. That's it. You can't keep everybody happy all the time, but if you do everything you can for as many people as you can, then feasibly the weight of numbers is that the hobby is going to grow.
Yeah.
So, any final comments before we close up for the night?
Yeah, keep with the story games as the players grow. I went home on the way home. I was thinking, if we got up to, multiples of the number of players who turned up and threw in an extra team or 4 teams and you had 3 playing, 1 sat out recovering intensity, there's a lot of scope for that to go on to something bigger. And as you organise it, loads more bits click into place. And I could see it being so much fun.
I mean, I definitely agree with that, Elma. As I put in the after action report, I felt that maybe the whole evening was kind of a repetition of the same game style. It felt, at least to me, a lot of it was always Team Alpha's going for an extraction and the Freedom Fighters are trying to stop them. Granted, that might have been due to the results of the previous game, but I maybe would have liked a bit more variety. But obviously, I do agree. Continuing the storyline would be great and awesome. Just trying to maybe throw in a few additional game types, or even just there's been a skirmish, team deathmatch, quick 5-minute game or something, just to kind of just break it up, as I mentioned. But yeah.
Surprise tip 3 coming in on you don't know whose side when they turn up and things like that would really get your heart.
The locals are joining in or something.
I know it's something that I personally love the concept of, like yourself there, Mark. A lot of my video game stuff is narrative style things. Mass Effect, the Mass Effect trilogy. Okay, for example, sort of one of my go-tos for a benchmark for great storytelling. And it's not for everybody. Like I said, you nerf you. A lot of people just want to go along with info. But I personally would love this heavy consequence, sort of sequential storytelling style event. It's something that I would love to be participating in. Win, lose, whatever, don't care. It's the idea that it always has an impact on something. But the idea that you could have the events from this one and the events from this one impacting the events from this one, there's a lot of scope there for what you could really do with it.
I think I do echo Ginger's comments actually on how some of the games felt like they were variations on a similar theme. I mean, we personally thought that we had built in a lot of variation, but effectively Team Alpha didn't win enough for that variation to happen. So I think we need
the flow chart, the map of what could have happened had the variation in it. It's just the route that was followed through the flow chart. Yeah. What I'd say is
so we need to have
Sorry, go on.
But I was going to say on that point we need to have a bit of A and B. So if it feels like there's too much extraction or too much hold a certain position, we need to have like a B side to that type of game, just so that it does change it up. And again, that's just a learn for us. It's just a bit more planning.
What I was going to say on the subject of narrative events, I mean, I love narrative events. I had a great time. 28 darts later down at Royal Holloway, that's can be fairly
Sure.
narrative as well. That's,
Yeah.
if you're into HVC, it's great. However, it's one of these you nerf you things. It all depends on the kind of people you've got at your event. I mean, for example, at Bristol Blast, you've got I don't know what the lower age limit is there, but you've got kids playing. If you got
6 or 8, I think it's young, and especially
some of the Foam Dot Thunder events that I've been to, and again, I've had a great time with those. But you've got kids playing. They are not going to, for example, they would not care about narrative. I recall.
You don't even care about taking a hit, mate.
That's the case with 12-year-olds as well.
Yeah, they just want to fling foam. They're not there for the plot. They're not there for strategy. You can tell them ahead of time. Okay, right, we're going to go up this flank. We're going to do this, and you're going to cover my back, and we're going to be really tactical. And they're all for it, and they're loving it, and they're going, yeah, that sounds great. And then the whistle blows. They all lose their minds and run off in different directions.
Yeah,
it's a matter of.
Well, I mean, I will at some point live out my ultimate fantasy of being Master Chief. So, and this is where a lot of this stem from. I'm gonna end
Ginge,
up
just to say, if you turn up in like a purple leotard, you're not allowed on the show. Right?
What? I'm so confused.
You can be Cortana. Yeah, you can be Cortana. Yeah, that's happening, right? That needs to be the snapshot for this video. Ginger's going to be Cortana, and I'm going to be Master Chief. I'm cool with that. But yeah, so like lean on to that. I mean, I have got like a big vision for all of this. And what day is it now? So I didn't win the lottery yesterday, so it's not happening this week. But stuff that Foam Dart Thunder is bringing in, like cosplayers and stuff like that, and on Fortnite and everything else. There's a whole kind of like list of ideas that we've got on a massive document of how we can build in kind of like storylines and video games and almost make it like playing a real life video game. So again, I'm fortunate that another business that I've got is running a rehearsal studio and a recording studio. So if I need soundtracks making or sound bites or something triggering via MIDI or something being triggered by somebody standing on it or pressing on it, that with the correct investment we can actually do. And there's enough brains within certainly Britain Earth and everything else that with electronics that we can kind of make that work. It's just physically having the time and the investment to be able to do it. And I sometimes have to pinch myself and be like, well, the website launched in December. We got into this 12, 18 months ago and we're running events and they seem to be going okay. This is a good start. But I know where I want it to go, and all of that hopefully will come with time.
So when are you offering heads-up displays then?
Yeah, well, I've thought about a whole
ammo and life counters.
Yeah.
Well, I've got I play drums, so I run a trigger system without boring you too much. It's basically a piezo electric sensor. It's really simple. So I thought about it'd be really cool if everybody wore like piezo suits. So when they got hit, it glowed. Because you could do that quite easily, but again, it need a lot of investment. And then you've got to make sure that if you're making 40 or 50 of them with all different sizes, that you've got enough events on that are going to pay for that. And it's a whole like risk versus reward.
I feel that
thing, but
also
it'll come with time.
Limit a lot of tack gear, because I know I personally like to wear a plate carrier, and that's probably going to defeat the entire purpose of your piezoelectric suit unless you can build it into a plate carrier. And then once again, you've got to everyone's setup is different. No two people will ever run the same exact setup. So unless you convince everyone to invest in this piezoelectric suit and outfit to their gear, it's going to be pretty hard to get a standardized sort of thing, which is the only issue, I guess.
Yeah, and again, like that Car 98 coming out, me and John have had a discussion about. It'd be great if there was an M1 Grand that came out and you could just have a World War II style event where everybody was running the same blasters, very, very communist. Same blasters,
I think there's a
same
Smiley
darts,
remix for that, actually.
Yeah. So there's lots of ideas that we've got, as I suppose everybody in the community's got, but it's just purely time investment and actually being able to make it happen. So, yeah. And of course, I need to sleep at some point. So there's that as well.
Just do an IV of caffeine and just keep going.
Yeah, I know. It's caffeine in the mornings and beer on the evenings. So
sounds perfect.
Yep.
Or you could skip that and just have Gonster instead, where it's got the two mixed together.
What?
A what?
Guinness and Monster. Have you never?
I couldn't imagine anything worse.
I guess it's a uni drink then.
Yes, so I was about to say, spot the student.
Yeah. Right. Right. I mean, I'm old, yeah, but like it was it snake bite or diesel? It was called. It was
Yeah.
the half cider, half lager thing.
Yeah, snake bite.
Yeah, or diesel, which was something in blackcurrant. I can't remember what it was. It sure wasn't Guinness and blackcurrant because that's just wrong on so many levels.
I
But
mean, Guinness and
Monster
blackcurrant is
and
somewhat
Guinness, Mon
That's just wrong. That's just wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in that industry. That's what I do every day is sell beer and drinks and stuff to people, and I've never heard that. And
can we
that's
sanction
wrong.
Ginge?
I mean, I've unfortunately had to serve worse when in hospitality. I think the worst was a Guinness shandy. That was that almost broke my soul having to pull one of those.
How do you mute
You
somebody?
ever had a concrete mixer? You ever had here's one for you, Ginge. You can try this because you lot would love this. So, have you ever had a concrete mixer?
As in an actual
you're one of-
concrete mixer or a drink called a concrete mixer?
A drink called a concrete mixer, but you have to mix it in your mouth. So if you get Baileys and you get lime cordial and you put the
Stop.
Baileys in first,
Stop.
lime cordial second, they separate in curdle and it creates like a concrete mixture. So you might want to try
I'll try that out at some point. Thanks. Got a bottle of Baileys in the fridge, actually.
As speaking of someone who did do a couple of seasons of holiday work as a barman in a hotel, you are all making me just die a little inside here. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
I was not above mixing lethal cocktails to get the guests to all go the hell to bed so I could close the bar for the evening. I'd do that, but
Yeah. I think the worst I've ever done
Oh, dear.
was an old pub that was called this Jekyll and Hyde's in Edinburgh. And they done the Seven Deadly Sins cocktail challenge. Do the Seven Deadly Sins, get the t-shirt, etc. But yeah, no. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Elma, if you just had a power cut or something.
No, it's certain times of day my lights do certain things. I'll get that back in a second.
Good old home kit.
It's how I know when to start doing things. Like it's time to have dinner, or it's time to start brushing my teeth. The lights do certain things, and it's better than alarm clocks. It doesn't frighten me.
I like that idea, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, same. I might yoink that.
It's going to go the same colour as Mark. Actually, that's a good colour for this time.
Yeah, I'm actually interested as well. Like both Tartans, ours. I know that John, when he finally sorts out flatline runners and quite a few others, we all seem to be running the blue and purple kind of theme. So yeah, we all end up being the same.
I think basically these are like two of my favorite colors. So just threw them together. I like the font that I found on one of these font library websites, and just went, fine. No. And I think I've never actually changed it. I don't actually think I've ever changed the font since I started the web page a couple of years ago. So like it works, and it's fine, And like most of when I got Jozo to print off me his V cars that he's doing now, they're done in our colours as well. I think the only thing that I haven't necessarily do is approached Al and said, "Would you like to dye these things in these colours, please? Thank you very much." Which I think is possibly going a little bit too far. But no, I mean it's something
So
that there you go, mate.
Yeah, when I talk to suppliers or manufacturers every now and again, and I'm like, why don't you just do things in blue and purple? And they're like, oh, well, it's not really that popular. I was like, you should.
It really is.
Look at it in the UK.
I was about to say, Mark, you've got a red saber. Why isn't that at least blue?
I have this conversation with Conrad all the time. I'm like, please make something in purple. So, funnily enough, something's coming in purple soon. So,
yes, maybe something to do with HPA or something.
It's the silicon bands for the magazines.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Purple, they would actually. Yeah.
Paul's son Jamie had a purple seagull at the event on yesterday, and I'm going to nick that. Going to nick that.
Say, you can get the teal seagulls and the purple seagulls, I'm pretty sure, and you could do similar what to Neil does, and just mash the two together to have a half that's purple, half that's teal, and there you go. I don't know, I see Tarleton's eyes have just lit up.
Or yeah,
I'm
just wait
waiting
until.
for someone
but
to
you
spray
do
the
the front and
inside of
back.
the clear
Oh.
seagull. That's going to look really good if they do a good job with it.
Mm.
I'm gonna get hold of a clear one and just dye it purple. I think, to be honest, like clear purple, like the Diana. I think that'd be pretty cool. Another project for another day.
Yeah, another indeed. So, with that, I think we've discussed Crisis in Karhazi as much as we can really sort of do. So, if there's nothing else to say, I would like to say thank you to my guests for episode 15, and we shall catch you for episode 16, which I believe should be Quarry Clash.
Ooh, that should be good fun.
Yeah, so I'll expect Ginge to turn up again.
Oh, okay. When is it again?
I have no idea. Darren just messaged me going, "Did we set a date for this?" Like, no, we haven't. So we'll do it. We'll... No, it's not me. It's not my fault. It's like, you know.
It's your podcast.
That's fair. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's literally your name at the top of the screen.
walked into that one. Yep, that's fine. No, that's fine. In which case, then I shall work out when the next recording is going to be. Right.
Well,
Thank you to
very much
everybody
for having us.
Indeed. Thank you for joining me for the show, and we shall see you all next time.